The shadows stir with anticipation. Void of Fears now stands merely 500 subscribers away from our 10k milestone. I never imagined so many would willingly step into the darkness with me. Your support, every subscription, every like, every comment, has fueled something beyond understanding. We're so close now. The entity that watches over this channel trembles with anticipation as we approach the threshold we've sought all year. To those who've joined our communion of fear, thank you. To those just finding us, welcome. The void has been waiting for you. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I made my way through the labyrinthine corridors of the underground complex. My badge, Dr. Gabriel Foster, Quantum Research Division, bounced against my chest with each hurried step. October was ending, and with it possibly the greatest scientific breakthrough of human history. I'd been at Area 51 for 15 years now, though the public face of the installation, the runways, hangars and security perimeters, were merely window dressing for what lay beneath. 5 stories underground, insulated from both radiation and prying eyes, was where the real work happened. Project Threshold, they called it, a decade-long attempt to create stable, interdimensional portals. The morning air in the desert had been bitingly cold when I'd arrived, the sky still dark and studded with stars. Nevada nights gave way to blazing days, but down here, it was always the same. Temperature controlled, sterile, and humming with power. I'd left the surface world behind long ago, both physically and mentally. My life was here now, among the machines and theories that most of humanity couldn't begin to comprehend. The elevator descended smoothly, each floor requiring higher security clearance. My palm pressed against a scanner, and a retinal verification later, the doors opened to reveal our research hub, a cavernous chamber dominated by the threshold apparatus. Rings of polished metal surrounded a circular platform, each designed to generate precise energy fields that, theoretically, could bend the fabric of reality. "You're late, Gabriel." Dr. Eleanor Wright didn't look up from her tablet as I approached. As project lead, Eleanor commanded respect through competence and an unwavering dedication that bordered on obsession. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a tight bun, face illuminated by the blue glow of her screen. "Traffic on the surface was bad," I replied, an old joke between us. There was no traffic underground, just the occasional military convoy moving equipment. She didn't smile. Eleanor rarely did these days. The pressure from above had been mounting for months. Generals and politicians demanding results after years of funding with little to show. "Save the humour for the Christmas party," she said, finally looking up. Her eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep. "We have another test scheduled for 1400 hours. The Joint Chiefs are sending an observer." "Another one?" I sighed, dropping my bag at my workstation. "What's wrong with the 10 we already have breathing down our necks?" "This one's from the Pentagon's Special Projects Division." She lowered her voice. "Word is they're considering reallocating our funding if we don't deliver soon." The threat wasn't new, but it never failed to send a chill down my spine. Project Threshold wasn't just my job. It was my life's work. The thought of it being shut down, handed over to some military think tank that would weaponize our research without understanding it, was my recurring nightmare. "Aiden's been asking for you," Eleanor continued, already turning away. "He says the particle alignment is off by microns. Fix it. We're testing again in 3 hours." Dr. Aiden Nakamura was hunched over a control panel when I found him, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. My closest friend on the project, Aiden had a brilliant mind for engineering problems, seeing solutions where others saw only obstacles. We'd met at MIT 20 years ago, 2 brilliant but socially awkward grad students who found common ground in theoretical physics and bad sci-fi movies. When I'd been recruited to Area 51, I'd insisted they bring Aiden too. Some of our best breakthroughs had come during our late-night brainstorming sessions, fueled by terrible coffee and worse takeout. "The field cohesion is unstable," he said without looking up. "We're getting bleed at the edges." I slid into the seat beside him, examining the readouts. "Did you try recalibrating the third ring?" "First thing I did." He pushed a strand of black hair from his eyes. "This is different. It's like reality is pushing back harder in some spots than others." We've been getting strange results for months. Microscopic tears in space-time that winked open for milliseconds before collapsing. But recently something had changed. The tears stayed open longer. Measurements could be taken. Data gathered. "Maybe we need to adjust for localized energy density," I mused, pulling up simulation models on my screen. "If space-time isn't uniformly resistant, then we need to apply variable pressure," Aiden finished, eyes lighting up. "Like pushing on a door with rusty hinges, you need more force in some spots than others." We spent the next hour refining the model, tweaking parameters, running simulations. This was why we worked so well together. Our minds complemented each other, filling in the gaps in each other's thinking. "Dr. Foster," a cold voice came from behind us. Colonel Victor Mercer stood with perfect military posture, his uniform crisp despite the early hour. As our military liaison, Mercer's presence was a constant reminder that our research had implications beyond science. "I understand we're making progress." I turned, trying not to show my distaste. Mercer had joined the project 6 months ago, replacing a more reasonable liaison who'd actually seemed interested in the science. Mercer, by contrast, cared only about results and applications, specifically military applications. "We're getting closer," I replied cautiously. Mercer made me uneasy. His eyes calculated everything in terms of strategic advantage. "Good. Washington is impatient." He glanced at the massive apparatus. "They want results." "Science doesn't operate on military timetables, Colonel," I said. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Everything operates on military timetables during wartime, Doctor. And make no mistake, we're always at war." He handed me a folder. "These are the specifications for the Observer arriving today. Make sure your team is prepared." After he left, Aiden let out a breath. "That guy gives me the creeps." "Yeah." I turned back to our work. "Let's focus on getting this right." For hours, we adjusted parameters, recalibrated instruments, ran simulations. The team grew larger as the test time approached. Technicians checking power systems, security personnel taking positions, medical staff standing by, just in case. Dr. Olivia Parker joined us midway through, bringing her expertise in xenobiology, the theoretical study of non-Earth life forms. Why they'd assigned a xenobiologist to our project had raised eyebrows, initially, but now it seemed almost prescient. "How are our exotic particle containment protocols looking?" she asked, leaning over my shoulder. "As good as they can be, considering we're dealing with theoretical particles from another dimension," I replied with a wry smile. Olivia joined the project last year, fresh from some classified research installation in Antarctica. She was brilliant, but guarded, never talking about her previous work, changing the subject whenever it came up. Still, her insights had proven valuable, especially her work on potential biosafety protocols for anything that might come through a stable portal. "Theoretical for now," she said, "but if today's test works..." Her words hung in the air. We were standing on the precipice of something profound, a discovery that would change humanity's understanding of reality itself, or possibly end in catastrophic failure, as so many tests before had. "Testing in 15 minutes, Eleanor's voice announced over the intercom. "All personnel to designated safety areas." The main chamber cleared except for essential operators. I took my position at the primary control station, heart pounding as the countdown began. Despite dozens of previous tests, this one felt different. The air seemed charged, heavy with anticipation. As the test approached, I noticed a man I didn't recognize entering the observation booth above the chamber. tall, distinguished, with silver hair and an expensive suit. The Pentagon observer, no doubt. He stood beside Colonel Mercer, watching the proceedings with detached interest. 10, 9, 8. The automated voice echoed through the chamber. I glanced at Aiden, who gave me a thumbs up from his station. We'd been through this ritual so many times before. The countdown, the surge of power, the momentary distortion of space-time, then nothing. Failure after failure, each teaching us something new, but never yielding the breakthrough we sought. Today felt different. 3, 2, 1, initiate. Power surged through the system. The rings began to spin, slowly at first, then faster until they blurred. Energy crackled between them, blue-white arcs dancing across the gap. Warning lights flashed as radiation levels spiked, but still within safe parameters. First threshold achieved, I called out, reading the displays. Field stability at 92%. Second threshold approaching, Aiden responded. Energy curve nominal. The air in the center of the rings distorted, bending light like heat rising from asphalt. Then suddenly, darkness bloomed. A perfect oval of absolute black, ringed by flickering, colorless flames. Portal stable, Eleanor's voice rose in pitch. My God, we did it! Alarms blared as instruments detected anomalous readings, unusual radiation signatures, gravitational fluctuations, but the portal remained open, a window to somewhere else. Up in the observation booth, I saw the Pentagon observer lean forward, his expression changing from skepticism to awe. Colonel Mercer was already on a secure phone, reporting the success to his superiors. Portal diameter stable at 3.2 meters, a technician announced. Depth readings inconclusive. Environmental sensors online, another called, detecting atmosphere on the other side. The moment stretched, pregnant with possibility. After a decade of work, countless failures, endless budget hearings and justifications, we'd done it. We'd opened a door to another dimension, another reality. Deploying probe Alpha, a technician announced. A sleek, insect-like robot crawled towards the portal on multiple, articulated legs. Cameras and sensors bristled from its body, designed to gather as much data as possible in the shortest time. Without hesitation, it scuttled into the darkness and vanished. For a moment, nothing happened. The control room held its collective breath. Then, the data stream activated, information flooding our systems as the probe transmitted back through the portal. Screens throughout the chamber lit up with transmitted images. A barren landscape stretched before us, rocky and uneven. The sky, if it could be called that, was a deep purple, with no sun visible. Instead, 3 moons of varying sizes hung overhead, casting multiple shadows across the alien terrain. Atmosphere readings coming in, Olivia called out, her voice tight with excitement. Nitrogen heavy, trace elements we can't even identify. Pressure approximately 1.2 Earth atmospheres. Temperature, Eleanor asked. -15 Celsius, survivable in proper gear. Radiation levels? Background radiation slightly elevated compared to Earth norms, but within safe parameters for short exposure. The probe continued its exploration, transmitting data and images. In the distance, something reflective caught the light. Structures, angular and seemingly artificial. Before we could direct the probe to investigate, the portal began to fluctuate. Power drain exceeding parameters, Aiden warned, field stability dropping. Recall the probe, Eleanor ordered. The little machine scuttled back through the darkness moments before the portal collapsed with a thunderclap that shook dust from the ceiling. An expectant silence fell over the chamber, broken only by the beeping of instruments. "We did it," I whispered, then louder. "We actually did it." Cheers erupted throughout the room. People hugged, clapped each other on the back. Eleanor's usual stern demeanor cracked into a wide smile. Even Colonel Mercer looked pleased. though his eyes had a calculating gleam that made me shiver. Later, as we examined the samples the probe had collected, alien soil, atmospheric components, Olivia's excitement was infectious. "The molecular structures are unlike anything I've ever seen," she gushed, peering through a microscope. "This could rewrite everything we know about biochemistry." I should have shared her enthusiasm. This was, after all, what we'd worked toward for years. But something nagged at me, a lingering unease I couldn't shake. The portal had opened too easily, after so many failures. It felt like we'd been banging on a door for years, and suddenly it had not just opened, but been flung wide. It was as if something on the other side had been waiting. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my Spartan quarters 4 levels below the surface, staring at the ceiling as my mind raced with possibilities. We'd opened a portal to another world, another dimension, and confirmed it contained an atmosphere we could breathe, temperatures we could survive, and possibly even intelligent life, judging by those distant structures. The implications were staggering. Were there other worlds beyond this one? A whole multiverse of realities parallel to our own? And if so, what separated them from us? What was the barrier we just punctured, and did it exist for a reason? I rose at 4 a.m., giving up on sleep. The facility never truly slept. There were always technicians, monitoring systems, security personnel patrolling corridors, scientists too, wired on caffeine and discovery to rest. I made my way to the analysis lab, hoping to review the probe data again in solitude. To my surprise, Aiden was already there, hunched over a terminal in the darkened room. "Couldn't sleep either?" I asked, flipping on a desk lamp. He startled violently, minimizing whatever he'd been viewing. "Gabriel, you scared me." "Sorry." I pulled up a chair beside him. "What are you working on?" "Just reviewing the telemetry data." He seemed oddly nervous, fidgeting with a stylus, looking for patterns. I glanced at his screen, but it was blank now. "Find anything interesting?" "Not yet." He rubbed his eyes. "But there's something we're missing. I can feel it." We spent the next few hours analyzing different aspects of the data: composition of the alien atmosphere, spectrographic analysis of the soil samples, radiation patterns. Around 7 a.m, Olivia joined us, bringing fresh coffee from the mess hall. "You two look like you've been up all night," she observed, setting the cups down. "Pretty much," I admitted, gratefully accepting the caffeine. "Too wired to sleep." She pulled up her own chair. "I've been thinking about those structures the probe spotted. They were clearly artificial, too geometric, too precise to be natural formations, which means..." "Intelligence," Aiden finished. "Life advanced enough to build." "Or evidence of life that once was advanced enough to build," I cautioned. "We don't know if anything still lives there. It could be ruins." Olivia shook her head. "The atmospheric composition suggests ongoing biological processes, and some of the microorganisms in the soil samples were definitely alive. I could see cellular movement under the microscope." "So an inhabited world," I mused, "with technology advanced enough for architecture, possibly even spacefaring if they built those structures under such harsh conditions." "We need to go back," Aiden said suddenly, with an intensity that surprised me. "We need to see more." Before we could discuss further, Eleanor entered the lab, looking more rested than any of us despite the early hour. "Good, you're all here. Meeting in the briefing room 1 hour. The Joint Chiefs have been apprised of our success, and they're interested." I'd expected as much. A breakthrough of this magnitude couldn't be kept quiet, even within the classified world of black projects. And the military implications alone, the strategic advantage of being able to move troops or equipment instantly to any point on Earth via a network of portals, would have the Pentagon salivating. What I didn't expect was what happened next. 1 week later, we gathered in the briefing room. Colonel Mercer stood at the front, flanked by 2 stern-faced men I didn't recognize. One wore the uniform of a general, 4 stars glinting on his shoulder. The other was the silver-haired observer from the test day, now introduced as Dr. Warren Keller, Director of the Pentagon's Special Projects Division. "The Joint Chiefs have reviewed your data," Mercer announced without preamble. "They've authorized a manned expedition through the portal." Murmurs rippled through the assembled scientists. Eleanor stepped forward. "Colonel, with all due respect, we've only managed to stabilize the portal twice, and never for more than 15 minutes. The risks are acknowledged and accepted," Mercer cut her off. "This is no longer just a scientific endeavor, Dr. Wright. What you've discovered has national security implications we cannot ignore." "You mean military applications," I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Mercer's eyes locked onto mine. "Among others, yes, but think bigger, Dr. Foster. Resources, technology, knowledge. Whatever is on the other side could change the balance of power on Earth forever." He turned back to address the room. "The expedition team will consist of 4 members. 2 military specialists, 1 scientist, and Dr. Nakamura as our portal technology expert." "Wait, Aiden?" I looked at my friend, who avoided my gaze. "You volunteered?" "Someone from our team needs to go," he said quietly. "I understand the technology better than anyone." I wanted to argue, to point out all the risks, but the determined set of his jaw told me his mind was made up. Always the adventurer, Aiden. Always pushing boundaries. "When?" Eleanor asked, her face tight with controlled anger. 3 days, General Davis spoke for the first time, his voice gruff. "We're fast-tracking the necessary equipment and protocols." 3 days? Eleanor's composure cracked. "That's not nearly enough time to prepare properly. We need to run more stability tests, develop better containment suits, establish robust communication protocols." "Those are being handled," Dr. Keller interjected smoothly. "Special Projects has been developing portable environmental suits for extreme conditions for years. They'll be adequate for this mission." Adequate? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We're talking about sending people to another dimension, and you think adequate is good enough? Keller's smile was thin. "The window of opportunity is now, Dr. Foster. If we delay, foreign powers may catch up to your breakthrough. Russia and China both have similar programs. They're years behind you, but that gap will close quickly once word of your success leaks out, and it will leak." The implication was clear. Move forward now, or watch someone else claim the glory and the strategic advantage of being first through the portal. The next 3 days were a blur of preparation. Special containment suits arrived, sleek, form-fitting things that looked more like something from a science fiction movie than practical gear. They were designed to protect against unknown environmental hazards while maintaining maximum mobility. Each came equipped with its own air supply, temperature regulation, and a suite of sensors to monitor both the wearer and the surrounding environment. Equipment was miniaturized and hardened against radiation. The portal generator was reinforced, its power supply tripled to ensure stability. Communication relays were established, designed to maintain contact through the dimensional barrier. Through it all, Aiden seemed distant, preoccupied. When I tried to talk to him about the risks, he brushed me off with platitudes about acceptable dangers and the march of progress. It wasn't like him. Aiden had always been cautious, methodical in his approach to new technologies. This recklessness was out of character. The night before the expedition, I found him in the mess hall, pushing food around his plate without eating. "You should get some rest," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Big day tomorrow." He looked up, and for a moment I thought I saw fear in his eyes, real bone-deep terror, before it was masked by a forced smile. "I'll sleep when I'm dead," he joked weakly. "That's not funny." "Sorry." He put down his fork. "Just nervous, I guess." "It's not too late to back out," I said gently. "No one would think less of you." I would. He met my gaze, suddenly intense. This is what we've worked for, Gabriel. The chance to see beyond our narrow slice of reality, to go where no human has ever gone before. You're starting to sound like a cheesy sci-fi show. That drew a genuine laugh. Maybe, but it's true. Think about it. Since the beginning of humanity, we've been confined to this one world, this one reality. Tomorrow, that changes forever. I couldn't argue with his passion, even as worry gnawed at me. Just be careful, okay? We still don't know what's on the other side. That's why we're going. His smile turned wistful. Remember when we were in grad school and we'd stay up all night arguing about whether parallel universes could exist? About whether there were copies of ourselves out there, living different lives based on different choices? I nodded, smiling at the memory. You were convinced they were real, even before we had any evidence. And now we know they are. He leaned forward. Do you ever wonder if there's a version of you over there? A Gabriel Foster who made different choices, took different paths? If there is, I hope he's having an easier time of it than I am, I joked. Aiden didn't laugh. What if it's not parallel universes, though? What if it's something else entirely? Something we've never even imagined? Then you'll get to name it after yourself, I said, trying to lighten the mood. The Nakamura dimension has a nice ring to it. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, maybe. As I rose to leave, he caught my wrist. Gabriel, if something happens tomorrow, if I don't come back, don't talk like that. Just listen. His grip tightened. If something happens, I want you to know that it was worth it. All of it. Every late night, every failed experiment, every setback. It led us here. And no matter what comes next, I'm grateful for that. It sounded too much like goodbye. The morning of the expedition arrived with a tension that hung in the air like static electricity. I found Aiden in the locker room zipping up his containment suit. You don't have to do this, I said, leaning against the doorframe. He looked up, his face serious but eyes bright with excitement. Yes, I do. This is why we became scientists, Gabriel. To explore, to discover. Just be careful, we don't know what's out there. That's why we're going. He grinned, the familiar expression momentarily easing my worry. Besides, I've got Jackson and Diaz watching my back. He nodded towards the two military specialists checking their equipment across the room. Both moved with the efficient precision of experienced operators. Captain Michael Jackson was a Navy SEAL, with the build and demeanor to match. His movements were economical, precise, a man who wasted neither motion nor words. Staff Sergeant Lucia Diaz came from Army Special Forces, her compact frame belying her strength. She was checking and rechecking a compact case of equipment with methodical attention to detail. The fourth member of the team was Dr. Thomas Miller, a geologist specializing in extreme environments. Quiet and methodical, Miller had worked on deep sea vent research before being recruited to Area 51. He was older than the others, with a weathered face that spoke of years spent in harsh conditions. 20 minutes to portal initiation, Eleanor's voice announced over the intercom. Expedition team to final briefing. That's my cue, Aiden said, picking up his helmet. He hesitated, then pulled me into a quick, fierce hug. See you on the other side, Gabriel. I watched from the control room as the team assembled on the platform. The portal generator hummed to life, energy building as the rings began to spin. The familiar oval of darkness opened before them, stable and ominous. Expedition team, you are go for transit. Eleanor's voice was steady, professional. Aiden turned, gave a final thumbs up, then stepped into the darkness. The others followed, one by one, until all four had vanished. For a moment, the chamber was silent, except for the hum of machinery. Then, crackling through layers of interference, came Aiden's voice. We're through. Portal remains stable on this side. I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Vital signs from all 4 team members showed elevated heart rates, but otherwise normal. Beginning environmental survey, Diaz reported. Atmosphere matches probe readings. Visibility approximately 2 kilometers. Ground is stable, appears to be some kind of hardened clay. For 40 minutes we listened as they explored the immediate area, around the portal, gathering samples and data. They confirmed the distant structures we'd glimpsed via the probe. Massive formations that might be natural but displayed too much symmetry to dismiss as such. Moving to investigate the structures, Jackson announced. Estimate 20 minutes transit time. Portal stability at 68%, a technician warned. Estimated remaining time, 22 minutes. Expedition team, be advised you have 20 minutes before recall, Eleanor transmitted. Acknowledgements came back, but the team continued toward the structures. As they drew closer, details emerged. The formations weren't crystal, but something like glass or obsidian, rising in perfect geometric patterns that defied natural formation. Definitely artificial. Miller's voice was hushed with awe. This is a structure, a building or monument. Can you see any entrance? Eleanor asked. Negative. Surface appears seamless. Jackson's camera panned across the black surface, capturing faint etchings that might have been writing or decorative patterns. Wait, I'm picking up movement. The camera swung toward the distance. At first, I saw nothing. Then, a flicker of motion behind a rock formation, something tall and fluid in its movements. The camera image distorted briefly. Do you see that? Aiden's voice had lost its excitement, replaced by something like caution. Affirm, moving to investigate, Jackson replied. Negative, Colonel Mercer barked, leaning toward the microphone. Do not approach. Return to the portal immediately. For once, I agreed with Mercer. Something about the glimpsed movement set off alarm bells in my mind. It hadn't moved like an animal, or even a person. It had moved like water flowing uphill. Portal stability at 53%, the technician called out. Fluctuations increasing. Expedition team, abort mission and return immediately, Eleanor ordered. The cameras jerked as the team turned and began moving quickly back toward the portal. For several minutes there was only the sound of their breathing, the crunch of boots on alien soil. Then, Diaz's voice tight with controlled fear. It's following us. Don't look back, just keep moving, Jackson commanded. The team broke into a run. Portal stability continued to drop. 15%. 12. 8. The image on Aiden's camera bounced wildly as he sprinted. The portal now visible in the distance. A shimmering oval of light against the purple-black sky. It's gaining, Miller shouted. I never saw what it was. The cameras showed nothing but the ground ahead as they ran. But the sounds that came through, a liquid rushing noise punctuated by what might have been speech in no human language, chilled me to the bone. They reached the portal with seconds to spare. Jackson and Diaz went through first, then Miller. Aiden paused at the threshold, turned his camera back toward whatever pursued them. For a split second, something filled the frame, a towering shape of shifting darkness that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Then Aiden plunged through the portal, emerging on our side as the oval collapsed behind him with a sound like thunder. All 4 expedition members lay on the platform, gasping for breath. Medical teams rushed forward. I pushed past them to reach Aiden, helping him sit up as he pulled off his helmet. Are you hurt? I asked, scanning him for injuries. He shook his head, still struggling to catch his breath. No, I'm fine, he looked up, meeting my eyes. Gabriel, it was... Whatever he was trying to say was interrupted as Colonel Mercer strode forward. Expedition team to decontamination and debriefing now. As they were led away, Aiden looked back at me over his shoulder. Something in his expression, confusion, fear, made my stomach knot. But he was safe. They all were. And the portal was closed. I told myself that was all that mattered. The debriefing lasted 16 hours. I wasn't allowed to attend, classified above my clearance despite my role in creating the technology. When Aiden finally emerged, he looked exhausted. Dark circles hung under his eyes, and he moved with a stiffness that suggested tension rather than injury. "How did it go?" I asked, falling into step beside him as he headed for his quarters. "Fine." The curt response was unlike him. "That's it? Fine. Aiden, you just walked on another world. You saw evidence of alien intelligence, and something chased you back through the portal." He stopped, rubbing his temples. "I'm tired, Gabriel. Can we talk about this tomorrow?" "Sure," I said, concern growing. "Get some rest." But tomorrow came, and Aiden didn't show up for his shift. When I checked his quarters, he wasn't there. I finally found him in the lab at midnight, working alone in the darkened space, illuminated only by the glow of computer screens. "What are you doing?" I asked. He startled, quickly minimizing whatever he'd been looking at. "Research. Couldn't sleep." "On what?" "Just reviewing the data from the other side." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "There's something I missed. Something important." I moved closer, noticing how pale he looked, how his hands trembled slightly. "Aiden, are you feeling all right? Maybe you should see the medical team." "I'm fine." The words came too quickly. "Just tired and processing what I saw." "What did you see? What was that thing that chased you?" He turned away, his shoulders tense. "I don't want to talk about it." Over the next few days, strange incidents began occurring throughout the facility. Equipment malfunctioned for no apparent reason. Cold spots appeared in rooms where the temperature should have been constant. 3 technicians reported hearing whispers when alone in labs or corridors, voices speaking words they couldn't quite make out. And Aiden grew increasingly isolated, working alone at odd hours, avoiding conversation. When our paths did cross, he seemed distracted, his attention elsewhere even when we were speaking directly. Twice I caught him staring at nothing, lips moving silently as if in conversation with someone I couldn't see. It wasn't just him. Jackson and Diaz, the military specialists, became withdrawn. I heard rumors they'd been transferred back to their units without warning. Miller, the geologist, took medical leave, complaining of persistent headaches and night terrors. When I tried to visit him in the medical bay, I was told he'd been moved to a military hospital off-site. Eleanor was concerned too. "Something's not right," she confided during a rare moment alone. "The Pentagon is pushing to reopen the portal, but they've restricted access to all the data from the expedition. They've brought in new personnel, specialists in fields I've never even heard of." "What kind of specialists?" I asked. She glanced around, lowering her voice further. "Parapsychologists, occultists, people who study fringe science. It's like they found something over there that they're not telling us about. Something that doesn't fit into conventional scientific understanding." A week after the expedition, I found Aiden in an empty lab, talking to himself. The room was dark except for a single computer screen, casting blue light across his face. He stood facing the corner, head tilted as if listening. "Don't understand what you want," he was saying to the empty air. "I can't." "Aiden!" I called from the doorway. He spun around, fear flashing across his face before recognition set in. "Gabriel, I didn't hear you come in." "Who were you talking to?" "No one." He gathered some papers, movements jerky. "Just thinking out loud?" I stepped closer, noticing how pale he looked, how bloodshot his eyes were. "You don't look well. Maybe you should see the medical team." "I'm fine." He edged away from me. "Better than fine, actually. I've never felt more aware." "Aware of what?" He hesitated, then leaned closer. "They're watching us, Gabriel. They always have been. The place we went to, it's not just another world. It's a threshold, a waiting room." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And now they know how to find us." Before I could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights began flashing in the corridors. "Warning, containment breach in Sector 7, an automated voice announced. "All personnel evacuate immediately." Sector 7 was the portal chamber. "Gabriel," Aiden grabbed my arm, his grip painfully tight. His eyes were wide, pupils dilated to black pools. "It's starting." He took off running down the corridor, not away from the danger, but toward it. I hesitated, then followed, heart pounding in my chest. The facility was in chaos, people rushing in all directions. Security teams moved with purpose, weapons drawn. I reached the observation level above the portal chamber and pressed against the reinforced glass. Below, I saw horror unfolding. The portal was open, a gaping wound in reality that pulsed and fluctuated wildly. Bodies lay scattered across the chamber floor. The night shift dead in positions that suggested their bones had bent, in ways human anatomy shouldn't allow. Their faces frozen in expressions of terror and agony, and Aiden stood on the platform directly before the portal, arms outstretched as if in welcome. I rushed for the stairs, ignoring the security officer who tried to stop me. By the time I reached the chamber level, emergency bulkheads were beginning to close. I slid through the narrowing gap just before they sealed shut, trapping me inside. The air inside the chamber felt wrong, heavier, charged with an energy that made my skin crawl. The background radiation alarms were shrieking, their displays showing levels well beyond safety parameters. The bodies of the night shift were even more horrifying up close, limbs bent at impossible angles, eyes wide and staring, mouths open in silent screams. "Aiden!" I called across the vast room. "What have you done?" He turned slowly, a smile spreading across his face. It was Aiden's smile, but wrong somehow, too wide, too knowing. "Gabriel, my friend." His voice resonated strangely, as if multiple voices spoke in perfect unison. "You should have stayed away." "What's happening?" I gestured to the portal, the bodies. "Did you reactivate the portal?" "Not me." He tapped his chest. "Us. We needed to open the way." A chill ran through me as realization dawned. "You're not Aiden." "I am. And I am more." It stepped toward me. "We've been watching your kind for centuries, Gabriel. Waiting for you to build the right door. So many times you've come close, only to turn away at the threshold." "What are you?" "We are the dwellers in the spaces between. You have no concept for what we are." The thing wearing Aiden's face smiled again. "But you will learn." Behind him, the portal pulsed, widening. Darkness spilled from it like liquid, pooling on the floor. Where it touched the dead bodies, they twitched. The others who went through, Jackson, Diaz, Miller, what happened to them? "They serve as Aiden serves, as you will serve." It gestured to the portal. "We are coming through now. This world has so much energy, so much life to consume." I backed away, mind racing. The portal generator controls were on the far side of the room. If I could reach them, maybe I could shut it down. Force a system collapse. "They're all like you now. Possessed?" I asked, trying to keep it talking while I edged toward the controls. "Possessed?" The thing laughed, a hollow sound that echoed unnaturally. "Such a primitive concept. We don't possess. We transform. We elevate. Your friend understood this in the end. When we showed him the truth of your reality, how fragile it is, how temporary." "And what truth is that?" I was halfway to the control panel now, moving slowly to avoid drawing attention to my true goal. "That your universe is dying, Gabriel. Has been since its birth. All universes die eventually, contracting back to nothing. But we exist outside that cycle, between realities. We've watched countless universes blossom and wither, and we remain. We endure. The portal pulsed again, growing larger. More of the liquid darkness spilled through, now forming tendrils that reached across the floor, like searching fingers. And now you want our universe, our world. Want? It tilted Aiden's head at an angle that looked painful. We need. Our domain grows smaller as your universes expand. Soon there will be no spaces between for us to inhabit. We must claim territory, establish a foothold in a physical dimension. I was nearly at the controls now, just a few more steps. And the price for that is humanity, all life on Earth. Life will continue, it said, changed but continuing. Your friend understands this. He welcomed us, opened himself to us. Aiden would never willingly help you destroy humanity, I said, anger flaring. Whatever you did to him, I did nothing he didn't allow. The creature's voice changed, becoming more like Aiden's normal tone. Gabriel, you don't understand. I saw it, the spaces between realities. It's beautiful there. Peaceful. No pain, no fear, no death. Just existence. The transition was so seamless I almost believed it was truly Aiden speaking. Almost. You're not him, I said firmly. I know my friend. He would never help destroy his own world. The thing shrugged Aiden's shoulders. Believe what you will. It changes nothing. The door is open. We are coming through. This world will be ours. As if reading my thoughts, it lunged with inhuman speed, blocking my path to the controls. Your primitive technology cannot stop us now. The bridge is established. The transformation has begun. Behind it, the darkness from the portal had formed into tall, shifting columns that vaguely resembled human shapes. They moved across the chamber with liquid grace, surrounding the fallen bodies of the night shift. As I watched in horror, the corpses began to rise, moving with jerky, puppet-like motions. You see? The thing in Aiden's body gestured proudly. Even your dead serve us, even your machines. It touched a nearby console, which sparked and went dark. We consume energy in all its forms, electrical, biological, spiritual. I backed away, looking desperately for a weapon, an escape, anything. The reanimated corpses were advancing slowly, their movements becoming smoother as the darkness flowed through them. Their eyes were empty sockets filled with swirling shadow. As I said, the creature continued, your friend understood in the end. When we found him on the other side, fleeing with the others, he was reluctant at first, fought us. But then we showed him the truth, the beauty of our existence, the inevitability of our victory. An alarm panel on the wall caught my eye, the fire suppression system. If I could trigger it, the sudden change in atmospheric pressure might disrupt the portal. And the others? I asked, sidling toward the panel. The soldiers? The geologist? The soldiers were simpler, it said dismissively. Trained to follow orders, to endure, to survive. Easy to convince that surrender meant survival. The old one was harder, his mind more rigid, set in its understanding of reality. He broke rather than bend. I reached the alarm panel and pulled the protective cover off. Aiden's still in there, isn't he? Still fighting you? For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the creature's stolen face. Parts of him remain. Memories, emotions, knowledge we need. But his consciousness is diminished. Aiden, I called out, hoping against hope. If you can hear me, fight it. You're stronger than this thing. The creature laughed. He cannot hear. It stopped mid-sentence, a spasm of pain crossing its face. For a moment, just a moment, I saw Aiden's eyes clear, recognition and horror dawning. Gabriel, his voice, his real voice, broke through. Run, please, I can't hold it back for long. Aiden, it's too late for me. He was fighting for each word, sweat beading on his forehead. But you can still stop this. The main power conduits, overload them. force a system collapse. His body contorted, falling to its knees as some internal struggle played out. "Hurry, I can't." The moment passed. When he looked up again, the alien presence was back in control, fury twisting Aiden's features into something barely recognizable. "Clever," it hissed, "but futile." I slammed my hand down on the emergency alarm. Klaxons blared throughout the chamber as sprinklers activated, spraying water from the ceiling. The portal fluctuated, edges wavering, but didn't close. "As I said," the creature smiled with Aiden's mouth, "primitive technology." But the distraction had given me an opening. I sprinted across the chamber, dodging the advancing corpses, heading for the main power relay station. If I could trigger an overload, the sudden power surge might collapse the portal and take half the facility with it. The creature realized my intention too late. "Stop him!" it commanded. The shambling corpses changed direction, moving to intercept me, but they were slow, clumsy. I reached the power station and ripped open the access panel. Inside was a maze of circuits and switches, fail-safes designed to prevent exactly what I was about to attempt. I began overriding them one by one, hands shaking but mind clear. "This won't save you," the creature called across the chamber. "Even if you close this door, we know the way now. We will find another entrance, another willing vessel." "Maybe," I called back, continuing my work, "but not today." The last failsafe clicked off. I took a deep breath, then slammed my hand on the emergency purge button. Warnings flashed across the panel as the system began to overload. "Warning, critical system failure, portal collapse imminent," the automated system announced. "Evacuate immediately." The creature wearing Aiden's face contorted with rage. "What have you done?" I didn't answer, already running for the emergency station against the wall. I smashed the glass, grabbing the axe kept there for dire situations. When I turned, the thing that had been my friend was approaching, its movements too fluid, too precise. "Don't do this," I pleaded one last time. "Aiden, if you're still in there." "Aiden is here," it replied. "He's screaming." I swung the axe, not at the creature, but at the nearest power conduit. Sparks exploded as the blade connected, plunging the chamber into darkness for a moment before emergency lights kicked on. Alarms wailed louder. "Warning, critical system failure, portal collapse imminent." The lights throughout the facility flickered as power was diverted to handle the overload. The portal's colour shifted from black to a sickly green. The flow of darkness reversed, being sucked back towards the opening. The animated corpses collapsed again, the shadow entities controlling them being pulled back towards the portal. "No!" The scream that tore from Aiden's throat wasn't human. His body began to twist, skin rippling as if something beneath it was trying to escape. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Though he couldn't hear me over the alarms and the roaring of the portal, the thing that had invaded him snarled, lunging toward me with inhuman speed. I stumbled back, fell, the creature looming over me. For an instant, I saw Aiden's eyes clear, recognition and horror dawning. "Gabriel," his real voice broke through. "End it, please." Then, the portal's reversal reached full strength. A hurricane-force wind tore through the chamber, pulling everything toward the opening. The creature howled as it was dragged backward, clawing at the floor, leaving deep gouges in the metal. I held onto the bolted-down console, watching as it and Aiden's body were pulled into the vortex. Just before they vanished, the entity looked directly at me. "We will return," it promised, the words somehow clear despite the chaos. "A part of us remains, waiting." Then it was gone. The portal collapsed with a sound like the world ending, and I was thrown backward by the shockwave. Darkness claimed me. I awoke in the medical bay 3 days later. Eleanor was there, looking haggard and years older. Colonel Mercer stood behind her, his face an expressionless mask. "What happened?" I croaked, throat dry and painful. "You saved us," Eleanor said simply. "The portal collapsed. The entities were pulled back through before they could spread beyond the containment area." "Aiden?" Her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head. The others from the expedition? Jackson, Diaz, Miller. Jackson and Diaz were found dead in their quarters, Mercer spoke up. Apparent suicides, though. He trailed off, the implication clear. Miller died in the military hospital. Brain hemorrhage. I closed my eyes, grief washing over me. They were all infected, possessed by those things. We don't know what they were, Eleanor said carefully. The official report calls it a psychological contagion of unknown origin. That's bullshit, I said flatly. You saw what I saw. What came through that portal wasn't a contagion. It was intelligent, purposeful. Regardless, Mercer cut in, Project Threshold has been terminated. The facility is being decommissioned. All records classified beyond top secret. You're burying it. Anger flared through my exhaustion. After everything that happened, everyone who died, you're just going to pretend it never existed. What would you have us do, Dr. Foster? Mercer's voice was cold. Announced to the world that we opened a doorway to an intelligent, hostile dimension. That entities from between realities tried to invade Earth. There would be panic, chaos. There should be, I said. People should know what's out there, what's waiting. That's not your decision to make. He straightened his uniform. You'll be debriefed once the doctors clear you. After that, you'll be relocated to a secure facility for observation. For how long? That's yet to be determined. After they left, I lay in the sterile room, replaying the events in my mind. Aiden's face as the entity took control. The bodies moving with their bones broken. The promise, we will return. But something else nagged at me, a detail I couldn't quite place. Something the creature had said about Aiden, about finding him on the other side, showing him the truth. It had been lying. It must have been. The expedition had been chased back through the portal. They hadn't been captured, transformed. They'd escaped. Unless they'd brought something back with them. A seed, a fragment, a piece of the entity, hiding within them, growing stronger, waiting for the right moment. Which meant the entity hadn't truly been defeated. It had merely been pushed back, forced to retreat before it was ready. And if fragments remained in others who'd been exposed, security personnel, medical staff, anyone who'd come in contact with the expedition team, then the invasion hadn't been stopped. It had only been delayed. The official story was a catastrophic equipment failure. Project Threshold was shut down, the facility sealed. The bodies were cremated, the records classified beyond top secret. I spent weeks in debriefing, telling my story over and over until my voice gave out. They didn't believe me, or if they did, they pretended not to. Easier to explain away the deaths as an accident than admit we'd opened a door to something monstrous. I was released eventually, retired on medical grounds with a generous pension and an ironclad non-disclosure agreement. The secure facility for observation turned out to be a remote cabin in Montana, far from people, from questions. 2 guards, polite, discreet, but ever present, lived in a smaller cabin nearby. For my protection, they said. To help me adjust, they said. I knew better. They were watching for signs of infection, possession, transformation, waiting to see if I'd been compromised. The nightmares started a month later. Dreams of the portal, of darkness flowing like water, of Aiden's face contorted in agony as something wore his body like an ill-fitting suit. I would wake gasping, convinced that shadows in my room were moving with purpose. In the dreams, Aiden spoke to me, pleaded with me. Sometimes he blamed me for leaving him behind. Other times he warned me of what was coming. And sometimes, the worst times, he invited me to join him, to embrace the transformation, to become more than human. The guards noted my deteriorating sleep patterns but did nothing. Perhaps that was part of their observation protocol. See how the nightmares progressed, whether they followed a pattern similar to what happened with the others. 6 months after the incident, I developed migraines, blinding pain that left me curled in the dark for days. When the pain became unbearable, I convinced the guards to take me into the nearest town to see a doctor. They ran tests, took scans of my brain, found something they couldn't explain, a small, dark mass nestled in my temporal lobe. Too uniform to be a tumour, too strange to be natural. We should run more tests, the doctor said, concern etched on his face. I declined. I already knew what it was, a seed, a fragment, a piece of the entity, left behind like a splinter. The guard's demeanour changed after that, more watchful, more tense. They spoke in hushed tones when they thought I couldn't hear. One made a call to their superiors, requesting containment protocols. The next day there were 4 guards instead of 2. Sometimes in the darkness just before dawn, I hear it whispering. Promises, threats, instructions I refuse to follow. It wants me to return to Area 51, to rebuild the portal, to open the door once again. I won't. But as the whispers grow louder each night, I wonder how long I can resist. I wonder if others who were there, technicians, security personnel, carry similar fragments, seeds waiting to sprout. And I wonder with growing dread if it even matters what I do, because the entity's final words haunt me still. We will return. The door was opened once, they know the way now. And doors, once discovered, can always be found again. Last night, I dreamed of Aiden again. But this time, he wasn't in pain. He wasn't pleading or accusing. He was smiling, peaceful, transformed. Behind him stretched an impossible landscape, a place between realities where physics bent and broke, where time had no meaning. "It's not what you think, Gabriel," he said, his voice echoing strangely. "It's not an ending, it's a beginning." "They killed you," I told him. "They killed everyone." "No." He shook his head. "They changed us, elevated us. You could join us if you wanted. All you have to do is let it in. The fragment you carry. Let it grow. Let it transform you." I woke with tears streaming down my face, the whispers louder than ever. For a moment, just a moment, I considered it. Considered surrendering to the thing inside me, joining Aiden in whatever existence he now had. But then I remembered the bodies in the portal chamber, the way they moved with broken bones, the cold alien intelligence behind Aiden's eyes as the entity spoke through him. Whatever waited on the other side, it wasn't elevation. It wasn't transcendence, it was consumption, possession, the end of humanity as we know it. This morning, I found one of the guards watching me with strange intensity. His eyes followed me as I moved around the cabin, his hand never far from his weapon. When I looked closely, I saw a faint discoloration spreading beneath his skin, just behind his ear, like a shadow beneath the surface. It's already happening. The invasion hasn't been stopped, just slowed. The entities are patient. They've waited centuries for this opportunity. They can wait a little longer for their fragments to grow, to spread, to multiply. I've started keeping a journal. These words, this record. I don't know if anyone will ever read it. I don't know if there will be anyone left to read it when the entities finally return in force. But I need to try, to warn those who might come after, to explain what we did, what we unleashed. The headaches are getting worse. The mass in my brain is growing, according to the latest scan. The doctor wanted to operate, but I refused. Cutting it out won't help. It's not just physical. It's something more. The guards are watching me write this. One of them, the one with the shadow spreading beneath his skin, is smiling slightly, as if he knows what I'm doing, as if he approves. Perhaps he does. Perhaps the fragment within him recognizes what I'm becoming, sees me as a potential ally in what's to come. He's wrong. Tonight, when the guards change shifts, there will be a brief window when their attention is divided. I've been studying their patterns for months. I know exactly when to move. There's a cliff about 2 miles from here, steep, rocky, fatal if someone were to fall. I won't let the thing inside me win. I won't become a vessel for the invasion. I won't be the door through which darkness enters our world. Aiden, if some part of you still exists, if you can somehow read these words, I hope you understand. I hope you forgive me. I hope that whatever has become of you, whatever transformation you've undergone, some essential part of my friend remains. And to whoever finds this account, believe it. Prepare for what's coming, because they will return. The entities from between, the dwellers in the spaces between. They know the way now, and doors, once discovered, can always be found again.